As shown by various studies, during a frontal lesson, there is a physiological drop in the attention level, starting after 15 minutes and reaching a negative peak at 40 to 50 minutes. To counteract this problem and to maximize the effectiveness of the teaching and learning process, the first step is to activate students. When dealing with large classes, with 100, 150 students and more, the organizational effort, the space available and the time needed make it very hard to introduce activities. But is that true? A great help to be able to restrict time waste and activate complex dynamics comes from three sources. The first thing is to not underestimate the effectiveness of quick activities that engage students for just a few minutes, but can cover an important role in reactivating attention, stimulating reasoning, and strengthening learning. They also provide initial feedback on the comprehension of content, which is useful both to students and professors. It is then possible, even if just for certain topics, to use a micro-blended format, meaning an individual fruition of contents before or after the lesson, through alternative materials such as text, slides and video, etc. It allows for longer and more articulated activities during the class. Another source, which is useful especially in large classrooms, is the use of digital systems to share, collect and manage information necessary to the completion of activities. Let's try to make an example of quick activities supported by a digital tool that can be particularly interesting in larger classes, students' response systems. With students' response systems, the professor creates and manages in a simple way quizzes that students can answer immediately simply with a smartphone or a PC with internet connection. For every single question, these tools show in real time the collected answers given by students. This way, it is easy, both for professors and students, to have a precise feedback in real time on the comprehension of content. It is also possible to deploy, if necessary, corrective actions. The interesting thing about the student response system is that they allow not only the implementation of simple comprehension quizzes, but they can also support various different learning outcomes from the simplest to the most structured. They enable, therefore, memorization of content, but they also support higher levels of objectives like creation or evaluation. With student response systems, it is therefore possible to break the unidirectional flow from teacher to student, creating brief moments of dialogue with the class. Moreover, the fact that they support various different learning outcomes make it possible to integrate them within the entire program in a consistent project. Let's now have a look at an example of an integrated project in a large class with limited time and resources that can be devoted to the activities. In this project, students' response systems are implemented through different use models. At the beginning of each lesson, the teacher may decide to assign a test on previous knowledge. In this way, it's possible to recenter the focus of students on the topic at hand and to underline key concepts that were covered in the previous lesson. At the beginning of a particularly complex theoretical explanation, the professor may decide to assign an anticipation test, which will stimulate the recovery of previous knowledge and that elicits the research of intuitive answers. The quiz is not followed by an immediate feedback, and the professor should encourage students to pay attention to the lecture to find out if the answer was correct or not. At the end of the lecture, the professor should review the answers and make comments. At the end of a theoretical lecture, he can decide whether to assign an explorative activity regarding a real case scenario. The teacher can also assign a simple test to consolidate what was explained. Students will answer this text individually at first, then discussing their answers with the student sitting next to them, and then answering the text again individually, confirming or changing their initial answer. This way, in just a few minutes, we can activate a dialogue within the peer group, and the unidirectional teacher-students flow can be interrupted. All of these quizzes can then become a review test that is available to students outside of the class. Obviously, during the following lessons, the teacher can modulate the type of activities and their frequency. And then, at the end of specific macro topics, the teacher can decide whether to assign any consolidating competitions, individually or in groups. It is important that the activities are always well integrated in the flow of the lesson. At the same time, should not underestimate the moment of feedback on single activities, which provides value to the experience. This is precisely the moment when students are most able to listen and have a higher level of motivation to learn.